Hey team, Mantra Models here with a post-holiday mail call. So if you're a savage like me and love tools and process, I think you guys are going to dig this little walkthrough on some of the stuff that I asked for and some of the stuff that I picked up over the holidays. Okay, so first up are these Madworks and Godhand sanding or grinding plates, also known as kind of sanding sticks. I think I've talked about this in the past, but I wanted to get it on video and just walk you through this and also have a record for anybody who wanted to research it. So the reason that you go with a grinding plate or just, any type of hard surface that's not going to give you pushback is that if you're using a sanding stick, this might look hard, but it's not. It's actually quite soft. And if you drag this across a surface, it's going to maintain the rounded shape of that surface. If you want it to remain flat, you actually need to use a grinding plate. And I have not been doing that, admittedly, to date. So I looked into this and I talked to Terry on a live stream a while back, and I've noticed that a lot of folks will use either these grinding plates, or there's also some metal plates that are out there offered by Godhand. So I've found the cheapest point of entry is either with the Madworks or the Godhand files. And both of these came from eBay, and just some really kind of quick principal differences that I noticed. So I like something actually longer when I'm holding and sanding. This is a comfortable position for me. This is a little bit smaller, and I know it probably doesn't look like it's going to make a big difference, but if you're sanding for an hour or 2 hours, your hand can certainly cramp up. So the Madwork plates are a little bit smaller, but what I like about them is that they're wider. So these are actually 80 millimeters in width. And I forgot what these ones are qualified as, but they're a little bit thinner. I'm sorry, in length. These are 20 millimeters in width, and these are 15 millimeters in width. So I prefer the Godhand length, but I'm not sure. I think this is their widest size. But I like the length here, and I like the width. So if there's a way to split the difference between the two, great. I'm not too worried about it. The price of entry wasn't too bad. I got these from Galactic Toy Store, and I think I got these from eBay, and I think they were something like $6 each. So I'm gonna try these out, and another kind of big component with this is that you just buy the grinding plate as is, and then use what's known as a 924 tape. So Terry pointed me to this. This is just an extremely thin double-sided tape, and actually the outside modeling community application is that this is used by people who do framing, and this is how they bind pictures or elements of the picture to frames. So Terry recommended the 924 tape, and I'm gonna try to pull this stuff together. Regarding sandpaper, I just have some stuff from the hardware store that I've kept in my workbench B for a while. I ordered some other grits, so I think the highest one that I have here is maybe 2,000 or 1,500. So I went on eBay and I got like 9x3. It goes from something like 200 grit all the way to like 5,000 grit. It was $7, and it's these 9x3 patches. So I'll use those for the later parts, but for the first 3 steps, I'll try these out. And this is going to be an evolution. One thing I was thinking about too was at the art store, they sell these acrylic plates for laying stuff out or just using as counterweights. So I'm going to try to see if those exist elsewhere. I know Robbie Play, when I'm watching his YouTube videos, he has these custom acrylic dealies set, and I really like the kind of tools that he has. So if I can find those out in the wild, I might try for that. But in the meantime, this will certainly carry me through for 6 months, a year, etc. Okay, part 2 of the mail call. So this is a Tack Life Power Rotary tool. I asked this for Christmas, and I got this off I asked for Christmas, and I believe on Amazon it was listed for something like $19 or $20. And what this is it's a wireless rotary tool, and it's really small for a hobby application. I forgot to post this on Instagram. If anybody does recall who was sharing this around about a month ago, please give them credits in the comments, because I definitely want to give that person a shout if I can remember it, and I'll try to come back if I do. But back to the tool. So what I want to be able to do with this is just have a small wireless rotary tool that fits comfortably in my hand and that I can use on the workbench. I like pin vices, and pin vices are great for doing little indentations, but there's been a couple times where I'm trying to punch through a model using a pin vise, and I swear I'm just kind of cranking on it for a while. The other piece too with a pin vise is you have to push and turn And so those two motions together can be, you know, a little tough to coordinate. I'm guessing that if I have this tool, I can just kind of straight drop it into it and then just focus more on applying pressure and accuracy. But I'll cut here in a second. I'll come back and I'll give you an unboxing of everything that's inside. So this is everything that comes with a Tack Life tool, and so far I'm pretty impressed. The build quality feels good. It's solid. It fits really well into my hand. It's, again, the price point is awesome. I think this thing, I can't imagine it was over $30. I think it was actually 20. It comes with 3 speeds, so once you punch it in, it goes to the max revolution, but then it walks back. But this is 1, 2, and that's 3 for the highest speed. And this is a nice responsive button. You have this little chuck lock right here for unwinding and putting your bits in. It comes with these bits. A small point, but a big point. I really like how these bits are organized. I have a Dremel knockoff tool back at my other workbench, and they just throw you everything and it's all mixed together. This is really nicely organized, and it'll fit well on my bench. It has, you know, just a kind of first glance, it has a lot of the traditional rotary tools that come, and then of course I have all the pin vise drill bits that should be compatible with this as well. You get a charging cable, you get a little warranty card, and you get a user manual. I'm not going to pick that up, but we all know what a user manual is. But yeah, this looks great. It's super compact. I'm glad it came charged. I'm going to probably charge it up a little bit more and then throw it over in the corner, and I'll let you guys know in the future, you know, how and where I use this for my hobby applications, and I'll also kind of give you a long-term, you know, how did this thing hold up. But I really like this so far. Okay, this next one won't be particularly sexy or exciting, but I think it's part of the basics, part of the fundamentals, and worth talking about really quickly. So I got some mechanical pencils when I was at the art store before the holidays and doing some gift shopping, and the how and why for this is that I want to start using these a little bit more for my panel lining. So I'll still use, and you can kind of see in the corner there, panel line accent colors, you know, anything with a capillary action. But when I'm coming back, I want to try to do my touch-up work with mechanical pencils. One part of the process that kind of chaps my butt and maybe bogs me down is when I do a panel line and then I go to clear it and pull it off, and then the panel line disappears. So you can do a couple things, right? So number one, you can go back with the same, you know, agent you're using for capillary action and put it back through and then just more carefully pull it off. Or, you know, you can use a mechanical pencil to just fill it in. More often than not, I'm finding, you know, when I'm pulling stuff off of a panel line that I'm only pulling, you know, small sections of it. It's not the complete section. So I'd rather just use a mechanical pencil with what's known as soft lead to touch that up. And you'll see here I used B series lead. So there's a bunch of different grades of soft lead, and B was the common one that I found between all the different pencil sizes. And I wanted to stick to this common one because from an experimentation standpoint, if I'm using the same hardness of lead, I can then kind of control and predict how it's working. The reason I'm using soft lead is that I'm assuming, and I got this from Donnie Baxter on Instagram, that if you use soft lead, you can, much like a thinned out application, you can use it in layers and slowly build up, versus a hard lead, which I can assume kind of immediately leaves a mark. I also got these 3 different widths based on different types of panel lines. So, you know, if it's an extremely narrow panel line, I'll use the 0.2. If it's a somewhat wider panel line, I'll use the 0.5. But this is my colored pencil setup. I also got a little bit of eraser just to kind of throw off to the side. And I'm hoping this kind of streamlines my panel line application and also gives me a little bit more consistency in appearance. So that's what's going on with mechanical pencils. And then the brand that I picked up was called Orenz. It was at a art store. It was the cheapest, most basic one that they had. The guy at the front counter actually says, he's like, this is my go-to, and I do a ton of freehand pencil drawing. He was saying that the more expensive ones aren't worth investing in his mind, and so he was happy to see me pick up a Renz, which I assume is his brand. So, pencils. Okay, for my airbrush nerds out there, I think you guys are really going to dig this next one. So I picked up this Harder and Steenbeck. It is called the, holy smokes, okay. I think it's called an FPC Complete CR Plus valve. And this is commonly known in the Badger community and some other communities as a MAC valve. And MAC is a acronym, it's capital MAC. I don't know what it stands for, but the bottom line is, and I'll unbox this and hook this up to my airbrush in a second, is that this gives you, it's similar to your regulator in terms of being able to control pressure. The upshot on this one, pun intended, is that you can do this directly from your airbrush. The other piece is, and I know you're probably saying like, you lazy son of a gun, just reach down and adjust the pressure. Yeah, you can do that. However, adjusting the pressure in really finite increments from the valve attached to the compressor is kind of hard to do. And so people use this Mac valve to adjust it here. One of the big reasons that I'm getting this is that if you guys watched my black basing video and I was trying to get really fine control on the X29 when I was doing my black basing, you might have noticed that I had kind of difficulty getting that really finite spray. So one of the ways that I read about how people overcome that is that they use a Mac valve. They set a pretty low pressure and then they adjust to the point where you know, it's coming out in a controlled method, but it's not speckling. So I'm hoping it helps out with this. Another big thing that I'm super excited about is that you can also, and I just mentioned a second ago about speckling, if you use a Mac valve, you can get that kind of like speckled texture. So, you know, on top of using a sponge on, you know, different parts for weathering, you can use this as a base layer. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about trying black basing again with this valve and potentially getting it a little bit more right. And I'll hook it up here in a second and I'll show you how it looks on my Harder and Steenbeck Evolution AL+. All right, so here it is hooked up to my Evolution AL+. And anybody's curious about this, I have another video where I talk to this airbrush and why it rules and why I like it so much. So this is my 0.2 airbrush. This is my smaller one for any type of detail work. I've got a 0.4, which is my big boy for larger coverage. But this is my finite one that I really work with. So, you know, par for the course, German engineering is phenomenal. So this thing fit on pretty flawlessly. I just pulled the previous air valve off and tacked on this new one. And I'm actually curious, something I learned later on from posting that other video is that there is a adjustment valve. So if you don't like the tension on your trigger up here, you can actually adjust it on Harder and Steenbeck airbrushes right here. So I'm curious what the tension is out of the gates for this. I might do some adjusting, but yeah, this thing turns super flawlessly. It's great. And it has just the right amount of tension so that, you know, once I kind of dial in my airstream, I can probably walk away from it. And it's so fast. I mean, you know, again, I'm kind of like making a whiny complaint about not having to reach down to adjust my air pressure, but I can really feel that I'm going to get a good degree of control about this, and I'm pretty excited to use it for future black basing and then also for future weathering applications. And then just in general, you know, hopefully it increases my workflow. As you all know, I'm very committed to trying to get my workflow as tight as possible because the amount of time I get to spend on the bench is somewhat limited. So that's pretty rad. This is the Harder and Steenbeck version of the Mac valve, and I'll be sure to include links in the description. So if any of you guys are Harder and Steenbeck peeps, you can find this and check it out. All right, so rounding home, this is the second to last item I wanted to show y'all. So this is a Taco Bell restaurant and N scale kit. I want to do, as y'all know or may not know, I have a 7-Eleven build that I'm really excited to do. And when I was, I subscribed to the MicroMark email, and they had a sale item for this Taco Bell kit for N scale. And for some of y'all who have been following along with me, you might know that I love the N scale stuff because it pairs perfectly with the 1/144th Gundam stuff. So I have this vision for a project. I'm not going to get to it for like a year or two, but I want to build a Taco Bell themed Gundam. And I don't want to tease it out anymore because I want to keep y'all in suspense. But for any of you guys who haven't seen these kits, they're super cool. So what you'll notice is it packs flat, and I'll cut here in a second, and I'll cut it open, and I'll show you guys what the guts of this kit looks like. Okay, so this was somewhat of a pleasant surprise, somewhat of an intimidating little build, it looks like. In the past, when I've ordered these types of kits, they just come from Japan, and what you'll notice is actually it's just a bunch of styrene sheets that are cut and molded per what the building looks like. And this one is pretty complex. I guess since it's a one-story building and there's all these arches and kind of little intricate parts of the silhouette of the building, this is how they've decided to break it out. But yeah, it looks pretty neat. There's a plastic bag in here. I'm not sure what that does. But the part that I was surprised by is you get all these instructions. So the kits that come from Japan are scanned. It's literally just the building, and they say go figure it out. So this one has some instructions, which is kind of nice. And it looks relatively straightforward. There's some seam line cleanup usually involved in this. And then the other piece too is that this is just printed on paper. So another skill that I want to be able to get after in the near future is being able to print your own water slide decals. So supposedly all you need is an inkjet printer and either the paper on white or on a clear backing, and then you can print out decals to use for your own applications. So I'm more likely than not going to use that. I also know too I can cut these out and probably get them to fit on the application, because most of the stuff looks like it's purely white. Like even the Taco Bell piece right here looks like it's a white decal on a little white piece of styrene. Oh, the other kind of cool part before I close this up too, they do all the other fast food restaurants. So they have Domino's, a Shell gas station, and the Summit Motel. The Shell gas station is actually really detailed. That's pretty cool. So I'll be using this hopefully in a future build, maybe a year, 2 years or so, and I'm excited to kind of do this like Taco Bell themed Gundam. And bonus points if anybody can guess which Gundam I'm going to use for the Taco Bell build. Just shoot me a note in the comments or send me a DM if you get the guess. All right, last but not least, this is a fun two-parter. So it is not simply the mask lunchbox, but I did want to stop and talk about this for a moment. I got some cool stuff inside here. So the mask lunchbox, actually my grandmother passed away in July, and when my mom went to North Carolina to go and clear out her house and collect what was left of her belongings, she actually found this lunchbox. And my grandmother always hung on to the smallest, kind of coolest, funkiest stuff that I had. And as you can tell, I loved Mask growing up. Mask, G.I. Joe, Transformers, anything where there's something mechanical, that happened, especially in a vehicle with, lightning bolts and all this super cool purple jet, blue jet, mortar launcher out of here. This is my sweet spot. So this is super cool that my mom found this, and this definitely brought me back and some great memories. I actually have a very small mask build that I'd like to do sometime in the future, and you can see, where my mom's handwriting was on top of this. So this is cool. I'll figure out a special place where I can kind of keep this, and or I might put some of my travel tools in this, and then tote around to when I'm on the road to put my stuff in here, and they'll see a 39-year-old man with a mask lunchbox. Who knows? Somebody might come up to me and say, "Hey, what's going on?" But I love that. I love mask. Supposedly, it's all part of a larger IDW universe, and at some point I heard there's a roadmap that G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask, Micronauts, all this stuff is going to come into a shared universe. So, we'll see if any of that happens. But in the meantime, let me show you what is inside, because these are the Savage tools that y'all love. So this is another Christmas gift that I asked for from Micromark. So these are they're called Inifini, and these are softback sanding sponge sticks. So I pointed out to you guys a little bit earlier, this is what's, I forgot who makes this. I think it's called Academy or some other corporation. They're very popular. Somebody please correct me on what the name is here. So these are good. These are great for, soft applications. They're nice and narrow. They definitely get the job done. However, I'm finding for like a lot of my seam line cleanup and larger work, I like having this beefy sponge to be able to hold in my hand. I was gushing during the X29 build with these sanding sponges that I found at my local hobby store, how I could hold them. However, is that it comes in 2 grits, and I'm not even sure how close this is. Like this 180 actually feels more like a 400 to me, and this 60 feels like 100. So, and that's not to knock the manufacturers. There's a wide, there's no universal consensus, or there's no agency looking to see what the accuracy of the grit is. So I'm not gonna slight them. But I thought these are really cool. And the other thing that I really dig about these two is it goes all the way up to 4,000. And I love how clear they're marked, and I like how big they are. So I'm gonna probably take all of, I'm just gonna keep calling these Academy until somebody corrects me. I'm gonna probably take all these and put them in a drawer for a little while and see how these work. And I'm gonna try to work with these Infinis. I got these, or I should say my Santa Claus picked these up from Micromark, and the whole set is something like $25, and you get 2 grits. The other piece is these are big, right? So what I'm planning on doing is mostly working around the edges, and then once the edges get worn off, I can probably cut them off, and then I'll have, you know, another section. So I would imagine these are going to last me a couple years, and for 25 bucks, that's a really good deal. Another kind of neat thing while I'm here showing you is you can see there's actually a piece of styrene in between on these Inifini sanding sponges. So these look great, and you know, again, I'm going to use these for rounded surfaces to maintain those edges. I'm not going to use them on a flat surface because using rounded sponges on a flat surface gives you kind of uneven results. That's what I'm going to use the Madworks and Godhand stuff for. This is the first time I've done something like this. I've actually been sitting on this stuff for a couple weeks, and it's been collected on my workbench. So give me some feedback if you guys like this. I'm going to be sure to include links in the descriptions for all this type of stuff. And if y'all love gear, tools, process as much as I do, please let me know, and I'll continue to crank this stuff out. As always, keep sending me work in progress pictures of what you guys are working on. I love that. It's one of the best things when I get a message from somebody that I follow or I don't follow that says, hey, here's what I'm doing, and I can kind of trade notes with them personally on what they're working on. So please keep that up. And of course, whatever you guys are getting after, be sure you make it macho.